Hello, everybody. My name is John Solomon, and I'm with the Cybersecurity Advisors Network. Welcome to the latest in our video series about interesting topics relevant to the cybersecurity industry, where we talk with CYAN members, partners, friends, stakeholders, subject matter experts, pretty much anything with something interesting and relevant to discuss to the current state and future developments of information security, risk management, policy around the cybersecurity ecosystem worldwide. Today, I'm with Jacques Dahan, Chief Revenue Officer of Cyvers. Cyvers is a blockchain security company based in Israel, fairly new. Now, full disclosure, I am also a member of a loose investment consortium called the Cyber Club London, consisting of a fairly large number of CISOs and similarly experienced security professionals. I'm a very, very small investor, wish it were larger, in Cyvers together with the rest of the group. So I do have a commercial interest in seeing them succeed. I'm also an on and off board advisor, and through my connections with Cyvers through CCL, I found this topic extremely relevant and interesting. And this is not a marketing video for Cyvers. I think they stand on their own virtues. But it is designed to be a conversation about issues surrounding the current state of blockchain security, security of crypto transactions, smart contracts, etc., with somebody who is obviously very, very knowledgeable in the subject. So Jacques, thanks very much for joining. Maybe you'd like to give a very quick overview of Cyvers before we jump right into the content?
Sure. Thank you very much, John. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jacques. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Cyvers. Cyvers is an Israeli startup. We raised $8 million through VCs. We built our platform back in 2022. We are a team of 25 people. The co-founders come from the Israeli army, where they designed the Iron Dome, or they participated to the designing of the Iron Dome system. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's basically detection of missile attack in real time and counterattacks in real time. And that's what we do. We detect suspicious activity in real time, and we send alerts in real time, and we provide and help crypto ecosystem protecting their crypto assets. That's what we do.
Thank you. So you mentioned that there's a lot that can be done in terms of detecting and potentially disrupting attacks during a preparatory phase by a fraudster or criminal. Maybe for those who are not so familiar with the points of vulnerability of a crypto transaction, you could walk through, let's say, the architecture, the topology of an attack on a crypto wallet or a crypto platform.
Right. So first of all, the type of attacks will differ whether you are a bank, you're a financial institution, or whether you are part of the DeFi world. DeFi for decentralized finance, and the banks and financial institutions will basically belong to the CeFi, centralized finance world. The attacks will be different because vulnerabilities will be different, and that's what I can address right now. So there's also there's been a paradigm shift back in 2022, where the entire industry has seen a change in the type of attacks and the targets. In 2022, 90% of the attacks were targeting the DeFi world. And in the DeFi world, we're talking about applications that run thanks to smart contracts. So the main vulnerabilities in the DeFi world were based on exploits of, code mistakes in the smart contracts. When a decentralized exchange or lending platform wrote their smart contract, they audited it, but that was not good enough. And mistakes like commas between 2 or 3 numbers, and the operation could make such a big difference. Like if you convert dollar to a crypto, if you forget the comma to put it at the wrong place, then you can lose millions, right? So these kind of mistakes were exploited. But to cut a long story short, we can identify 3 major categories of vulnerabilities. First one is the smart contract exploit, whether it's a code mistake or whether it's a logical mistake. The first category of vulnerabilities are smart contract exploits. The second category are private key leakage or compromission. As you may know, cryptos work with a pair of public key and private key. To cut a long story short, if you want, let's say, to send me a package that includes, clothes, you're an Amazon card, and you send me, you're going to need my public address, right? My street address, where I live, and that's what I'm going to share with you. So the public address is similar to the public wallet address of the wallet that manages your crypto assets. Now, what is key to understand is that without a private key, then your wallet is not helpful. There's nothing you can do if you don't own and manage your own private key. And the private key is to the wallet what my key will be to my house. If I share with you my public address to receive a package, I'm not going to send you my key, right? I'm going to keep my key. That's exactly the same thing. So cryptos work with wallets with a public and a private key. Now, private keys can be stored and managed by an exchange like Coinbase or Kraken, and you don't have to worry about managing your private key. They will provide you this custodian service. But most of the times, or for DeFi app users, they believe that they prefer to own their private keys. There's a famous saying, not your keys, not your crypto. If you don't manage your private keys, you can lose your crypto. And that's true. So the thing is that private keys was a main reason for vulnerabilities, for attacks. Smart contracts are the second category. And the third category was the cross-chain bridges. Let me elaborate 1 minute on cross-chain bridges. Since the development of the blockchain, what have we seen? The first blockchain was Bitcoin with proof of work mechanism. And then we have seen the emergence of Ethereum. The main difference...
finally moved over to proof of stake.
Exactly. We moved to proof of stake, but also the specificity about Ethereum is that you could write smart contracts. All right. Therefore, Ethereum is to the crypto industry what, let's say, iOS is to the phone industry. Meaning, on the basis of Ethereum, like on the basis of iOS, you're going to have hundreds, thousands of applications running on top of Ethereum, like you see all of the app stores, all of these applications running on top of iOS, and then you have equivalent and competitors of iOS, right? You have Android, you have Google, etc. Same goes for the crypto ecosystem. We are redefining the economy, starting with the financial system, on the foundation of what we call layer ones, meaning Ethereum, and on top of Ethereum, like on top of Cardano, other competitors of Ethereum, we see all of these applications running on top of Ethereum, but they are written with smart contracts, and smart contracts are vulnerable. So 3 main categories of vulnerabilities: private keys, smart contract vulnerabilities, and cross-chain bridges. Now, to explain cross-chain bridges, the problem was that if you had a Bitcoin and you wanted to, let's say, earn interest on a Ethereum application that promotes, a lending platform or a decentralized exchange, if you had a token from Bitcoin or a crypto from Bitcoin, or let's say a crypto from Cardano, you could not use your token of Cardano on top of Ethereum. Why? Because it was not compatible. It's like if you want to run your WhatsApp application on iOS and Android, instead of developing smart WhatsApp for Android plus a WhatsApp version from iOS, then you would use a cross-chain bridge. Cross-chain bridge will basically make the experience transparent, whether you own a Cardano token or any other token amongst the thousands of tokens that you can find. And you don't have to worry about if you want to lock your token on a different layer one, all right, to earn more interest, because let's say you earn Cardano and you want to earn more interest on Ethereum, you don't have to worry cross-chain bridges will help you moving or swapping your token from one layer one to another one. But the problem is, even if they do this job pretty good, that they have done it without the security aspect of it. They did not come with enough security when they were swapping tokens. And this was one of the major vulnerabilities. So, in summary, cross-chain bridges, smart contract exploits, and private keys are the main reasons of hacks today in the crypto ecosystem.
And I really like your comment about it's not built in, because that's a fairly common feature as well. I mean, a good analogy for me as well is, earlier on, more primitive fraudsters and ransomware actors trying to use Bitcoin without realizing that, the very nature of the decentralized ledger allows, tracing of transactions. So, one thing that I find interesting is crypto by its very nature. You mentioned liquidity, and one of the main, I think two of the main potential areas are, first of all, cutting out the middleman, making things more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and ensuring liquidity, and I think also ensuring transparency as well. Crypto, whenever you say encryption, anything, people start thinking about, is an algorithm vulnerable? To my knowledge, there have not been any of the underlying crypto systems themselves that have been breached in any of the major blockchains. And the other thing is that the major frauds we've seen have more been a breakdown of financial risk management, lack of understanding of counterparty risk, of uncollateralized loans, etc. So what you're describing seems to me like yet another layer of source of risk on top of this, without these attacks really affecting the underlying crypto system itself.
Yeah, right, Sean. You're mentioning a good point. And let me sort of clarify. First of all, we have to make a difference between the data that you can record on a blockchain, whether it's a proof of work blockchain like Bitcoin, or a proof of stake blockchain like Ethereum, or like any other compatible, Ethereum. The principle of the blockchain is to basically use a combination of technologies like encryption, peer-to-peer technologies, and a consensus mechanism that will basically do the work of a bank without the bank. Meaning, when a transaction is happening, when I want to send you my Bitcoin or whatever tokens I want to send you, the job of making sure that if there's not going to be a double spend, because it's bytes, right? You can copy and pass, right? So who can prevent you from copying your Bitcoin into hundreds of other Bitcoin? So this is a job of the blockchain. The blockchain will also make sure that once you send your crypto, it will arrive at destination. So all of this is done by the blockchain. Now, once a transaction is recorded on the blockchain, the information cannot be tampered with. This is a fact, and since the advent of blockchain back from the Genesis block in 2009, this settlement, this recording, this protection of transactions of data, this has never been hacked. So that's the first thing. So what are we talking about when we're talking about hacks? We're talking about basically, like, for example, in the smart contracts, we're talking about code exploits. These are mistakes that happen also in the Web 2, let's say, or in any other software development cycle, right? Or when an application is not secure enough because they forgot to lock up everything. This has nothing to do with the crypto itself, right? These are methods used for decades, even more, right? So crypto, by nature, we have to differentiate the blockchain recording process, and the information, once it is in the blockchain, cannot be tampered with. This is not for discussion because it never happened. This has never been a hack, even though millions and millions of transactions have been recorded, right? But what happens is, yes, still we see all of these vulnerabilities, but mainly because the software development was not good, or there was a vulnerability in between two applications, or someone got access to the private key from the internal, right, from the inside. Meaning, the insider threat has always been there, not just in the blockchain, right?
It's an age-old topic with any crypto implementation where the vulnerability, I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen, things like DES, for those of you who are old like me, being shown to be vulnerable, its original implementation and almost by design. I don't recall any recent major crypto system, again, where the crypto system itself has been proven to be vulnerable. And I feel it is my professional duty as a cybersecurity person to say the blockchain is not vulnerable as far as we know. No, there's no 100% security, but as you say, there is no evidence that we're aware of that any have ever been tampered with. And it's as with any other crypto system in history, as far as I'm aware, any major one recently at least, it's always been the key management or the implementation, essentially the wrapper around it. So this is where a bad guy has an opportunity to attack, for example, a crypto exchange.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, there's enough propaganda in this world to give a perception that does not reflect the reality. I'll give you an example. 98% of the crypto transactions are legit. They're legal. There's no crime. So the vast majority of crypto transactions are not criminal. Now, the problem is that the government, to a certain extent, some bank representatives, they understand the dangers, the threats that cryptos represent. Can you imagine a system where people don't need banks? I mean, come on. The system would crash, right? So since the beginning, they had to create a different perception using the emotional feelings that cryptos means criminal activity. That's not true. However, there is 2% of criminal activity. And the problem is that this 2% means billions of dollars of assets. And to a certain extent, for some companies, it means going bankrupt because they lost everything, their reputation, their assets. So therefore, it's important to add enough layers of security because unfortunately, crime is happening.
I think from experience, you can break it down into three general categories. The crime, and I think we're only looking at one of these right now. First one being, I'm going to say fraud, or at least negligence of fiduciary duty by financial institutions, certain crypto exchanges, lending platforms last year that went under because of lack of risk management. The second one being the use of crypto as a medium by fraudsters, ransomware actors, for example. It's very much a fact, and it is a significant enough area, but that's fraud. They can be using any type of money. It's just that crypto, you have to take the good with the bad. And by the way, anybody interested in this conversation, I just did a video together with Jean-Christophe Letoka of Cyan and Encryption Europe about the need for balance between privacy and public safety, essentially. And really the third aspect is the actual exploits, the actual security exploits. I think, to be honest, as an outside of the security discussion, the crypto industry per se has not done itself any public relations favors recently, because there is this, on the one hand, there's a lot of greed that obviously drove a lot of people to speculative investment in cryptocurrency. And on the other hand, there is, as you say, there is a lot of noise, a lot of smoke that comes from, for example, malware actors' use of cryptos. But the breaches of the crypto exchanges are a very real issue. The others are financial crimes. We can't solve these financial crimes via information technology, information security, or we can, not the space that we're involved in. But we can, however, approach the actual exchange breaches, the misuse of technological platforms and vulnerabilities, which is what you guys are proposing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, unfortunately, there will always be crime, right? I mean, crime has existed since human civilization exists, right?
The cynic in me says, thank God, because that means I can buy lunch. It's a horrible thought, but it's the
Yeah,
reason we have a job.
exactly. So unfortunately, crime will always be there. Now, the question is, where do we put the cursor to, invest in enough security, right? Of course, this is up to the organization, right? Banks or financial institutions or exchanges. It will depend on how connected they are with cryptos and blockchain, etc. But two things. First of all, we're not at the point of massive crypto adoption, but we will get there. It's no longer a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So that's one thing. And we could elaborate why the blockchain, digital assets are revolutionizing the way we run society, not just the financial system, the way we run the society. So every business segment is going to be changed, revolutionized by the crypto, the same way that in the early years of the internet changed by reducing business models, intermediaries, etc. Being faster, cheaper, and better is a principle that no one can resist. It's going to revolutionize the way we run society. So therefore, we're going to get to the massive crypto adoption. And therefore, it's really a matter of time. And we need to really think about how you can protect your assets. And there has been, two waves of blockchain security companies. The first wave was since 2014, blockchain analytic companies to comply with AML regulations. And they are very good at Chainalysis, the CipherTrace of the world, to trace and to track back financial crime. That's the first category, but they don't protect in real time. The second category is the smart contract auditing firms. But again, it's a pre-deployment of an application. And now we need to move, like, for example, there were a few statements by SEC Chairman Gary Gensler or the FBI, but we need more real-time incident response programs. So capacities to detect a crime before it happens is key.
I think Gensler's comments, they're very contentious, and they also, I think, caused a lot of even backlash within the SEC itself.
Yeah, that's true.
I think they are very important because they are indicative. I mentioned this previously in another conversation we had. They're indicative of what does the regulator do? The regulator wants stability. They want to ensure societal stability, industry stability. They want predictability. So the regulator is always going to have as their objective putting a mechanism in place to make sure that, no critical actor is going to be able to cause damage through negligence or by allowing malicious actors to abuse that negligence. So in this sense here, I think one of the interesting developments we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years is the increasing adoption of cybersecurity regulations to this end by, Office of Currency Control, by New York State DFS, by the European Commission, Singapore, Monetary Authority of Singapore, where cybersecurity risk management frameworks and controls adoption have been increasingly mandated by these regulators because they want to avoid, financial institutions just failing to invest in their own security. And thus, when something does happen, it blows up the whole system. So, and what you said is really important. I think that crypto is still a comparatively small part of the financial ecosystem, let alone the rest of the world. And I want to get to that in a second, but it is really growing quickly, and it's going to change.
You're right, absolutely. And the regulators will play a significant role. And we believe that regulators will move to, a few more steps. And one of the steps will be to set recommendations in the direction of real-time monitoring. And this is something, by the way, that you can achieve in, I would say, with more security than with the traditional financial system. Why? Because unlike the traditional financial system, the blockchain, the nature of the blockchain is that you can have access to all transactions. You can look at the history of transactions. You can look at who is sending what to who, not IDs. For that, you would need to have a subpoena, to subpoena the exchange, to unveil the name of who owns the wallet. But if you go on a blockchain explorer, you can see all the history of transactions, which you cannot have in the existing financial system. There's no way you can see all the transactions of Goldman Sachs, or all the transactions of Barclays, or all transactions combined. There's no way. But in the blockchain industry, that's what you get. And that helps a lot in terms of building a much safer financial system, a much safer financial system based on a blockchain rather than on financial traditional fiat system, etc. And that's key. And that's why we see the next generation of companies like Cyvers, sorry to advertise us, but we are combining artificial intelligence and blockchain transparency to get data. And you've seen the the chat GPT phenomenon. This is revolutionizing also the society, the way we are dealing with data, with content, with information. That's the same.
I think if it's Microsoft, it might be revolutionizing it a little bit too quickly.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah. But bottom line is, based on blockchain, we can build a much safer financial system.
I think a really interesting phenomenon is also that I don't think anybody has successfully done this yet, but one thing that blockchain transactions lend themselves to and is for example, verifying identities and traceability via zero knowledge systems, where you don't actually have to know the identity of the person that's behind this, but you can double mask this, for example. So this is going to be very, very interesting, and I think put a lot of burden on financial services operators also to increasingly engage in traceability of transactions and thus the security of the whole system. And I think this is almost terra incognita for a lot of people, where we're going to also need to see the privacy implications of this. So
absolutely. And one of the first applications we've seen back in 2013 and 2014 in the financial system was the settlement latency. That, for example, just in the trading world, when you trade bonds, stocks, etc., you have so many intermediaries between the dealers, the brokers, the bank, the exchange itself. And from the moment you initiate a transaction and the moment all parties have their accounts, settled, sometimes it took few days, but most often it took 7 weeks. So if it takes 7 weeks to, let's say, be in debt of a few $1,000s or a few $100,000 for a bank, doesn't matter, right? Peanuts. But sometimes it got to a point where you had hundreds of millions of dollars pending. And if you have to wait a few weeks, then it can create, solvency issues. And that's basically what happened. One of the reasons of the 2000 financial crisis.
Just about to say, that's I think that's something that a lot of the crypto colleagues forget every now and then, is that much of this in a different form has already happened in the traditional financial sector.
Absolutely. And when you think about the settlement transactions in crypto world, we're not talking about weeks. We're not talking about days. We're not even talking about hours. You can settle all transactions for all parties, and there are less parties, third parties involved, in minutes. Can you imagine the difference?
I mean, I think we can debate about the performance of various different blockchains, but the fundamental idea stands, right? One thing I wanted to touch on with you, and this is, I think, crucial to the information security aspect, because fundamentally there's always this question of, so what? Why are we doing this? And I think in a way it's similar to the regulators. It is in a way to support the stability and confidence of the system and the societies that we work in. It sounds a bit ideological, but it's true. So I think the utility of crypto as a technology, as a field of technology, has been very heavily overshadowed by the speculative bubble that we had in 2021. I bought a bunch of Dogecoin back in 2014, so I was just following it for the fun of it. But as you indicated, this is a technology with a huge amount of potential that's not yet been exploited. I think it's like a lot of technologies, like the web, right? The web took years before anybody really started using it for something actually powerful and useful. And look at us now.
Exactly.
And And so the question for me is, when you talk about blockchain security, you're not just talking about cryptocurrency, crypto wallet security. You're talking also about fundamental security of smart contracts as they could apply to a whole raft of areas. Example for me, for example, tracking, supply chain integrity, right? The list is endless. Can you give me a few thoughts about what do you feel are some potential future developments where I think we as a society and as an industry need to be much more aware of the need to integrate security into these blockchain-based applications and smart contracts?
Yeah, of course.
Outside the financial aspect.
Yeah, of course. But first of all, let me also elaborate a little bit on what do we mean by crypto. Most of the time, people are confused. What is a crypto? What is a token? First of all, a Bitcoin function has nothing to do, let's say, with Ethereum, or Ethereum has nothing to do with a token from one of the decentralized applications in the DeFi world. Today, there are more than 22,000 cryptos and tokens, and you have dozens of cryptos and tokens that perform a different function. Now, that's the first thing. Second thing is, to answer your question, where are we going? What kind of future developments? I mean, I truly believe that we are moving to a complete decentralized and tokenized economy. What does it mean? It means that if you take, for instance, the business segment of the automobile industry, can you imagine that you already have this kind of sub-ecosystem, the automotive manufacturer, they have their own vendors, they work with their own, third parties. This is like a mini ecosystem, right? Imagine a token that will ensure and enable instant payments with 100 times less fees, 100 times faster, where every party is settled at pretty much the same time. And imagine this token function for all the different ecosystems that we can find. So a tokenized economy is a world where every single business can have his own token to transfer not just a currency, because the blockchain can transfer not only the currency like a Bitcoin, and it's like basically the early days of internet. It's like when you would say, oh, internet, it's email, or email is internet. Why? Because the email was the first application of the internet, right? Back in the mid-90s or 93, 94. Then blockchain and Bitcoin and blockchain are today what email and the internet was. Underpinning the Bitcoin is the blockchain, and blockchain can revolutionize the society. We're going to get to a point where, for example, in a village in a third world somewhere, you can manage the electricity production without an intermediary. And everything will be from the production of the electricity with solar panels to the distribution of the electricity without intermediaries, and thanks to blockchain technology. All applications that we can think of today, all the use cases, all the different business segments from healthcare, supply chain, all of these segments will be tokenized and will run on a blockchain. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it already started.
And this was, I think, the holy grail back in the early 2000s with PKIs, with public key infrastructures, is not just verifying the integrity, but also the proving the assertion of identity of something, for example. My wife spent a lot of time working in fashion, and one of the eternal challenges is sweatshops. Sweatshops are a fact of life for anybody who buys cheap t-shirts, right? And tracing, even for the big or the small, even the most ethical fashion companies that invest a lot of time into this, same with food production, there's always a possibility that somebody 3, 4, 5, 6 stages down the line is doing something dodgy. So here's a really good opportunity to use the technology to basically ensure the integrity of the communication chain, the integrity of production. The other one I can think of is you mentioned automotive supply chain, for example. I mean, supply chain right now is a huge topic generally, but for example, code-based security, right? And NFT, for all the silliness associated with it, the monkey ones, whatever they are. I think the concept as essentially a way to sign something or assign ownership in more ways than just being able to have an avatar in your social media profile that somebody can screenshot is actually really interesting, because you can do all kinds of stuff to verify, is this actually from so and so who claims it is the integrity intact? And this is, I think, where it gets into the really interesting parts of what you're talking about in terms of the security of this. Because once you start getting these mechanisms interwoven with, I think, what we like to call critical infrastructure, critical functions, critical industries, yeah, that's when you start talking about serious societal risk. Right, it's not just somebody who's losing a couple of Cardano coins on an exchange that gets hacked. You're actually talking about the integrity of a national power grid, for example, right? How the Polish power grid talks to the Spanish power grid, talks to the Italian power grid, things like that. I think given the fact that regulators increasingly in the EU, obviously I'm biased being in Spain, have recognized the importance of ensuring the integrity of these critical infrastructures, for example, via the NIS2 directive, via DORA for financial services. We're going to start seeing an increased attention to the technological controls and mechanisms to help secure these. And this is where I think this is one of the reasons I really wanted you on to have a chat about this. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here. It is an industry that is, let's be honest, it has a lot of charlatans, it has a lot of buzzwords, but as you said, it also has, I think, the tragedy of that is that it sometimes, often in fact, buries that more adult discussion of the very, very real potential and future.
Absolutely.
But also the risks that bears and the need to address these risks by, for example, ensuring the security of the underlying infrastructure and mechanisms. So given that, I slowly want to start wrapping up. Do you want to leave any other comments? Obviously, I'll link to Cyvers' website.
I mean, I'm available for any questions or follow-up. But again, to cut the long story short, we're moving to a decentralized and tokenized economy. Blockchain will be everywhere. Like today, there's no business without internet, or there's no business without a mobile app. There's going to be no business without a blockchain, and make sure you have enough security. Excellent.
Listen, Jacques, I really thank you very much for humoring me. My stupid questions. You're the subject matter expert.
That's nice. That's really good.
This is a great topic. It's a new topic for a lot of people. I will also put if I may, put your contact details.
Yeah, of course.
Paper that you mentioned. And the Cyvers, commercially aside, this is a group of people that I feel has a huge amount of knowledge on the topic and a lot of insight. And is obviously, given the fact that so few organizations are looking into the security aspects of this new land, essentially, I think it's an intriguing thing to keep an eye on. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank everybody. Please don't forget to visit us at cybersecurityadvisors.network. I'll link to us in the video description as well. And please make sure to stay tuned for future videos on any topics that also you might find of interest to the cybersecurity industry. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time, Jacques, and take care.
Thank you, John, and thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.